Book 2, Chapter 1, of a damosel which came girt with a sword for to find a man of such virtue to draw it out of the scabbard. After the death of Uther Pendragon reigned Arthur his son, the which had great war in his days for to get all England into his hand. For there were many kings within the realm of England, and in Wales, Scotland, and Cornwall. So it befell on a time when King Arthur was at London, there came a knight and told the king tidings how that the King Rience of North Wales had reared a great number of people, and were entered into the land, and burnt and slew the king's true liege people. If this be true, said Arthur, it were great shame unto mine estate but that he were mightily withstood. It is truth, said the knight, for I saw the host myself. Well, said the king, let make a cry, that all the lords, knights, and gentlemen of arms should draw unto a castle called Camelot in those days, and there the king would let make a council general and a great jousts. So when the king was come thither with all his baronage, and lodged as they seemed best, there was come a damosel the which was sent on message from the great Lady Lyle of Arvelion. And when she came before King Arthur, she told from whom she came, and how she was sent on message unto him for these causes. Then she let her mantle fall that was richly furred, and then was she girt with a noble sword whereof the king had marvel, and said, Damosel, for what cause are ye girt with that sword? It beseemeth you not. Now shall I tell you, said the damosel. This sword that I am girt withal doth me great sorrow and cumbrance, for I may not be delivered of this sword but by a knight, but he must be a passing good man of his hands and of his deeds, and without villainy or treachery, and without treason. And if I may find such a knight that hath all these virtues, he may draw out this sword out of the sheath. For I have been at King Rience, it was told me there were passing good knights, and he and all his knights have essayed it, and none can speed. This is a great marvel, said Arthur, if this be sooth. I will myself essay to draw out the sword, not presuming upon myself that I am the best knight, but that I will begin to draw at your sword in giving example to all the barons that they shall essay everych one after other when I have essayed it. Then Arthur took the sword by the sheath and by the girdle, and pulled at it eagerly, but the sword would not out. Sir, said the damosel, you need not to pull half so hard, for he that shall pull it out shall do it with little might. Ye say well, said Arthur. Now essay ye all my barons, but beware ye be not defiled with shame, treachery, nor guile. Then it will not avail, said the damosel. For he must be a clean knight without villainy, and of a gentle strain of father's side and mother's side. Most of all the barons of the round table that were there that time essayed all by row, but there might none speed. Wherefore the damosel made great sorrow out of measure, and said, Alas, I weened in this court had been the best knights without treachery or treason. By my faith, said Arthur, here are good knights, as I deem, as any be in the world, but their grace is not to help you, wherefore I am displeased. Chapter 2, how Balin, arrayed like a poor knight, pulled out the sword, which afterward was the cause of his death. Then fell it so that time there was a poor knight with King Arthur, that had been prisoner with him half a year more for slaying of a knight, the which was cousin unto King Arthur. The name of this knight was called Balin, and by good means of the barons he was delivered out of prison, for he was a good man named of his body, and he was born in Northumberland. And so he went privily into the court, and saw this adventure, whereof it raised his heart. And he would essay it as other knights did, but for he was poor and poorly arrayed, he put him not far in press. But in his heart he was fully assured to do as well, if his grace happed him, as any knight that there was. And as the damosel took a leave of Arthur and of all the barons, so departing, this knight Balin called unto her, and said, Damosel, I pray you of your courtesy, suffer me as well to essay as these lords. Though that I be so poorly clothed, in my heart meseemeth I am fully assured of some of these others, and meseemeth in my heart to speed right well. The damosel beheld the poor knight, and saw he was a likely man, but for his poor raiment she thought he should be of no worship without villainy or treachery. And then she said unto the knight, Sir, it needeth not to put me to more pain or labour, for it seemeth not you to speed there as other have failed. Ah, fair damosel, said Balin, worthiness, and good tatches, and good deeds, are not only in arrayment, but manhood and worship is hid within man's person, and many a worshipful knight is not known unto all people, and therefore worship and hardiness is not in arrayment. By God, said the damosel, ye say sooth, therefore ye shall essay to do what ye may. Then Balin took the sword by the girdle and sheath, and drew it out easily, and when he looked on the sword it pleased him much. Then had the king and all the barons great marvel that Balin had done that adventure, and many knights had great despite of Balin. Certes, said the damosel, this is a passing good knight, and the best that ever I found, and most of worship without treason, treachery, or villainy, and many marvels shall he do. Now, gentle and courteous knight, give me the sword again. Nay, said Balin, for this sword will I keep, but it be taken from me with force. Well, said the damosel, ye are not wise to keep the sword from me, for ye shall slay with the sword the best friend that ye have, and the man that ye most love in the world, and the sword shall be your destruction. I shall take the adventure, said Balin, that God will ordain me, but the sword ye shall not have at this time, by the faith of my body. Ye shall repent it within short time, said the damosel, for I would have the sword more for your avail than for mine, for I am passing heavy for your sake. For ye will not believe that sword shall be your destruction, and that is great pity. With it the damosel departed, making great sorrow. Anon after, Balin sent for his horse and armour, and so would depart from the court, and took his leave of King Arthur. Nay, said the king, I suppose ye will not depart so lightly from this fellowship. I suppose ye are displeased that I have showed you unkindness. Blame me the less, for I was misinformed against you, but I weened ye had not been such a knight as ye are, of worship and prowess. And if ye will abide in this court among my fellowship, I shall so advance you as ye shall be pleased. God thank your highness, said Balin. Your bounty and highness may no man praise half to the value, but at this time I must needs depart, beseeching you alway of your good grace. Truly, said the king, I am right wroth for your departing. I pray you, fair knight, that ye tarry not long, and ye shall be right welcome to me and to my barons, and I shall amend all mis that I have done against you. God thank your great lordship, said Balin, and therewith made him ready to depart. Then the most part of the knights of the Round Table said that Balin did not this adventure all only by might, but by witchcraft. Chapter 3. How the Lady of the Lake demanded the knight's head that had won the sword, or the maiden's head. The meanwhile that this knight was making him ready to depart, there came into the court a lady that hight the Lady of the Lake. And she came on horseback, richly beseen, and saluted King Arthur, and they asked him a gift that he promised her when she gave him the sword. That is sooth, said Arthur, a gift I promise you, but I have forgotten the name of my sword that ye gave me. The name of it, said the lady, is Excalibur, that is as much to say as cut steel. Ye say well, said the king, ask what ye will, and ye shall have it, and it lie in my power to give it. Well, said the lady, I ask the head of the knight that hath won the sword, or else the damosel's head that brought it. I take no force though I have both their heads, for he slew my brother, a good knight and a true, and that gentlewoman was cause of my father's death. Truly, said King Arthur, I may not grant neither their heads with my worship, therefore ask what ye will else, and I shall fulfill your desire. I will ask none other thing, said the lady. When Balin was ready to depart, he saw the Lady of the Lake, that by a means had slain Balin's mother, and he had sought her 3 years. And when it was told him that she asked his head of King Arthur, he went to her straight and said, Evil be you found, ye would have my head, and therefore ye shall lose yours. And with his sword lightly he smote off her head before King Arthur. Alas, for shame, said Arthur, why have ye done so? Ye have shamed me in all my court, for this was a lady that I was beholden to, and hither she came under my safe conduct. I shall never forgive you that trespass. Sir, said Balin, me forethinketh of your displeasure, for this same lady was the untruest lady living, and by enchantment and sorcery she had been the destroyer of many good knights, and she was cause that my mother was burnt through her falsehood and treachery. What cause soever ye had, said Arthur, ye should have forborne her in my presence. Therefore, think not the contrary, ye shall repent it, for such another despite had I never in my court. Therefore withdraw you out of my court in all haste ye may. Then Balin took up the head of the lady, and bare it with him to his hostelry, and there he met with his squire, that was sorry he had displeased King Arthur, and so they rode forth out of the town. Now, said Balin, we must depart. Take thou this head and bear it to my friends, and tell them how I have sped, and tell my friends in Northumberland that my most foe is dead. Also tell them how I am out of prison, and what adventure befell me at the getting of this sword. Alas, said the squire, Ye are greatly to blame for to displease King Arthur. As for that, said Balin, I will hie me, in all the haste that I may, to meet with King Rience and destroy him, either else or die therefore. And if it may hap me to win him, then will King Arthur be my good and gracious lord. Where shall I meet with you? Said the squire. In King Arthur's court, said Balin. So his squire, and he departed at that time. Then King Arthur and all the court made great dole, and had shame of the death of the Lady of the Lake. Then the king buried her richly. Chapter 4. How Merlin told the adventure of this damosel. At that time there was a knight, the which was a king's son of Ireland, and his name was Lancelot, the which was an orgulous knight, and counted himself one of the best of the court. And he had great despite at Balin for the achieving of the sword, that any should be accounted more hardy or more prowess. And he asked King Arthur if he would give him leave to ride after Balin and to revenge the despite that he had done. Do your best, said Arthur. I am right wroth with Balin. I would he were quit of the despite that he hath done to me and to my court. Then this Lancelot went to his hostelry to make him ready. In the meanwhile came Merlin unto the court of King Arthur, and there was told him the adventure of the sword, and the death of the Lady of the Lake. Now shall I say you, said Merlin, this same damosel that here standeth, that brought the sword unto your court, I shall tell you the cause of her coming. She was the falsest damosel that liveth. Say not so, said they. She hath a brother, a passing good knight of prowess, and a full true man. And this damosel loved another knight that held her to paramour. And this good knight her brother met with a knight that held her to paramour, and slew him by force of his hands. When this false damosel understood this, she went to the Lady Lyle of Arthurian, and besought her of help to be avenged on her own brother. Chapter 5. How Balin was pursued by Sir Lancelot, knight of Ireland, and how he jousted and slew him. And so this Lady Lyle of Arthurian took her this sword that she brought with her, and told there should no man pull it out of the sheath but he be one of the best knights of this realm, and he should be hard and full of prowess, and with that sword he should slay her brother. This was the cause that the damosel came into this court. I know it as well as ye. Would God she had not come into this court, but she came never in fellowship of worship to do good, but always great harm. And that knight that hath achieved the sword shall be destroyed by that sword, for the which will be great damage. For there liveth not a knight of more prowess than he is, and he shall do unto you, my lord Arthur, great honour and kindness, and it is great pity he shall not endure but a while. For of his strength and hardiness I know not his match living. So the knight of Ireland armed him at all points, and dressed his shield on his shoulder, and mounted upon horseback, and took his spear in his hand, and rode after a great pace, as much as his horse might go. And within a little space on a mountain he had a sight of Balin, and with a loud voice he cried, Abide, knight, for ye shall abide whether ye will or nill, and the shield that is to fore you shall not help. When Balin heard the noise, he turned his horse fiercely, and said, Fair knight, what will ye with me? Will ye joust with me? Yea, said the Irish knight, therefore come I after you. Peradventure, said Balin, it had been better to have holden you at home, for many a man weeneth to put his enemy to a rebuke, and oft it fouleth to himself. Of what court be ye sent from? Said Balin, I am come from the court of King Arthur, said the knight of Ireland, that come hither for to revenge the despite ye did this day to King Arthur and to his court. Well, said Balin, I see well I must have ado with you, that me forethinketh for to grieve King Arthur, or any of his court, and your quarrel is full simple. Said Balin, unto me, for the lady that is dead, did me great damage, and else would I have been loath as any knight that liveth for to slay a lady. Make you ready, said the knight Lancelot, and dress you unto me, for that one shall abide in the field. Then they took their spears, and came together as much as their horses might drive, and the Irish knight smote Balin on the shield, that all went shivers off his spear, and Balin hit him through the shield, and the hauberk perished, and so pierced through his body and the horse's croup, and anon turned his horse fiercely, and drew out his sword, and wist not that he had slain him, and then he saw him lie as a dead corpse. Chapter 6. How a damosel, which was love to Lancelot, slew herself for love, and how Balin met with his brother Balin. Then he looked by him, and was ware of a damosel that came riding full fast as the horse might ride, on a fair palfrey. And when she espied that Lancelot was slain, she made sorrow out of measure, and said, O Balin, 2 bodies thou hast slain in one heart, and 2 hearts in one body. and 2 souls thou hast lost. And therewith she took the sword from her love that lay dead, and fell to the ground in a swoon. And when she arose, she made great dole out of measure, the which sorrow grieved Balin passingly sore. And he went unto her for to have taken the sword out of her hand. But she held it so fast he might not take it out of her hand unless he should have hurt her. And suddenly she set the pommel to the ground, and rove herself through the body. When Balin espied her deeds, he was passing heavy in his heart, and ashamed that so fair a damosel had destroyed herself for the love of his death. Alas, said Balin, me repenteth of the death of this knight, for the love of this damosel, for there was much true love betwixt them both, and for sorrow might not longer behold him, but turned his horse and looked toward a great forest, and there he was ware by the arms of his brother Balin. And when they were met, they put off their helms and kissed together, and wept for joy and pity. Then Balin said, I little ween to have met with you at this sudden adventure. I am right glad of your deliverance out of your dolorous imprisonment. For a man told me, in the castle of 4 stones, that you were delivered, and that man had seen you in the court of King Arthur. And therefore I came hither into this country, for here I suppose to find you. Anon the knight Balin told his brother of his adventure of the sword, and of the death of the Lady of the Lake, and how King Arthur was displeased with him. Wherefore he sent this knight after me, that lieth here dead, and the death of this damosel grieveth me sore. So doth it me, said Balin, but ye must take the adventure that God will ordain you. Truly, said Balin, I am right heavy that my lord Arthur is displeased with me, for he is the most worshipful knight that reigneth now on earth, and his love will I get, or else will I put my life in adventure. For the king rients lieth at a siege at the castle terrible, and thither will withdraw in all haste to prove our worship and prowess upon him. I will well, said Balin, that we do, and we will help each other as brethren ought to do. Chapter 7. How a dwarf reproved Balin for the death of Lancelot, and how King Mark of Cornwall found them, and made a tomb over them. Now go we hence, said Balin, and well be we met. The meanwhile as they talked, there came a dwarf from the city of Camelot on horseback, as much as he might, and found the dead bodies, wherefore he made great dole, and poured out his hair for sorrow, and said, Which of you knights have done this deed? Whereby askest thou it? Said Balin, For I would with it, said the dwarf. It was I, said Balin, that slew this knight in my defence, for hither he came to chase me, and either I must slay him or he me. And this damosel slew herself for his love, which repented me, and for her sake I shall owe all women the better love. Alas, said the dwarf, thou hast done great damage unto thyself, for this knight that is here dead was one of the most valiantest men that lived, and trust well, Balin, the kin of this knight will chase you through the world till they have slain you. As for that, said Balin, I fear not greatly, but I am right heavy that I have displeased my lord King Arthur, for the death of this knight. So as they talked together, there came a king of Cornwall riding, the which hight King Mark. And when he saw these 2 bodies dead, and understood how they were dead, by the 2 knights above said, then made the king great sorrow for the true love that was betwixt them, and said, I will not depart till I have on this earth made a tomb. And they pied his pavilions, and sought through all the country to find tomb. And in a church they found one was fair and rich. And then the king let put them both in the earth, and put the tomb upon them, and wrote the names of them both on the tomb. How he lieth Lancelot, the king's son of Ireland, that at his own request was slain by the hands of Balin, and how his lady, Colombe, and paramour, slew herself with her love sword for dole and sorrow. Chapter 8. How Merlin prophesied that 2 of the best knights of the world should fight there, which was Sir Lancelot and Sir Tristram. The meanwhile as this was doing, in came Merlin to King Mark, and seeing all his doing, said, Here shall be in this same place the greatest battle betwixt 2 knights that was or ever shall be, and the truest lovers, and yet none of them shall slay other. And there Merlin wrote their names upon the tomb with letters of gold that should fight in that place, whose names were Lancelot de Lake and Tristram. Thou art a marvellous man, said King Mark unto Merlin, that speakest of such marvels. Thou art a boisterous man, and unlikely to tell of such deeds. What is thy name? Said King Mark. At this time, said Merlin, I will not tell, but at that time when Sir Tristram is taken with his sovereign lady, then ye shall hear and know my name, and at that time ye shall hear tidings that shall not please you. Then said Merlin to Balin, Thou hast done thyself great hurt, because that thou savest not this lady that slew herself, that might have saved her, and thou wouldest. By the faith of my body, said Balin, I might not save her, for she slew herself suddenly. Me repenteth, said Merlin. Because of the death of that lady, thou shalt strike a stroke most dolorous that ever man struck, except the stroke of our Lord. For thou shalt hurt the truest knight and the man of most worship that now liveth, and through that stroke 3 kingdoms shall be in great poverty, misery, and wretchedness 12 years, and the knight shall not behold that wound for many years. Then Merlin took his leave of Balin, and Balin said, If I wist it was sooth that ye say I should do such a perilous deed as that, I would slay myself to make thee a liar. Therewith Merlin vanished away suddenly. And then Balin and his brother took their leave of King Mark. First, said the king, Tell me your name. Sir, said Balin, ye may see he beareth 2 swords. Thereby ye may call him the knight with the 2 swords. And so departed King Mark unto Camelot to King Arthur, and Balin took the way toward King Rience. And as they rode together, they met with Merlin disguised, but they knew him not. Whither ride you? Said Merlin. We have little to do, said the 2 knights, to tell thee. But what is thy name? Said Balin. At this time, said Merlin, I will not tell it thee. It is evil saying, said the knights, that thou art a true man, that thou wilt not tell thy name. As for that, said Merlin, be it as it be may, I can tell you wherefore ye ride this way, for to meet King Rience, but it will not avail you without ye have my counsel. Ah, said Balin, ye are Merlin, we will be ruled by your counsel. Come on, said Merlin, ye shall have great worship, and look that ye do knightly, for ye shall have great need. As for that, said Balin, dread ye not, we will do what we may. Chapter 9. How Balin and his brother, by the counsel of Merlin, took King Rience and brought him to King Arthur. Then Merlin lodged them in a wood among leaves beside the highway, and took off the bridles of their horses, and put them to grass, and laid them down to rest them till it was nigh midnight. Then Merlin bade them rise, and make them ready, for the king was nigh them, that was stolen away from his host with 60 horses of his best knights, and 20 of them rode to warn the Lady de Vance that the king was coming, for that night King Rience should have lain with her. Which is the king? Said Balin. Abide, said Merlin, here in a straight way ye shall meet with him. And therewith he showed Balin and his brother where he rode. Anon Balin and his brother met with the king, and smote him down, and wounded him fiercely, and laid him to the ground. And there they slew on the right hand and the left hand, and slew more than 40 of his men, and the remnant fled. Then went they again to King Rience, and would have slain him had he not yielded him unto their grace. Then said he thus, Knights full of prowess, slay me not, for by my life ye may win, and by my death ye shall win nothing. Then said these 2 knights, Ye say sooth and truth, and so laid him on a horse litter, with that Merlin was vanished, and came to King Arthur aforehand, and told him how his most enemy was taken and discomfited. By whom? Said King Arthur. By 2 knights, said Merlin, that would please your lordship, and tomorrow ye shall know what knights they are. Anon after came the knight with the 2 swords and Balin his brother, and brought with them King Rience of North Wales, and they delivered him to the porters, and charged them with him. And so they 2 returned again in the dawning of the day. King Arthur came then to King Rience, and said, Sir King, ye are welcome. By what adventure come ye hither? Sir, said King Rience, I came hither by an hard adventure. Who won you? Said King Arthur. Sir, said the king, the knight with the 2 swords and his brother, which are 2 marvellous knights of prowess. I know them not, said Arthur, but much I am beholden to them. Aye, said Merlin, I shall tell you. It is Balin that achieved the sword, and his brother Balin, a good knight. There liveth not better of prowess and of worthiness, and it shall be the greatest dole of him that ever I knew of knight, for he shall not long endue. Alas, said King Arthur, that is great pity, for I am much beholden unto him, and I will deserve it unto him for his kindness. Nay, said Merlin, he shall do much more for you, and that shall ye know in haste. But, sir, I ye pervade, said Merlin, for to mourn the host of Nero, King Rience's brother, will set on you anoon with a great host, and therefore make you ready, for I will depart from you. Chapter 10. How King Arthur had a battle against Nero and King Lot of Orkney, and how King Lot was deceived by Merlin, and how 12 kings were slain. Then King Arthur made ready his host in 10 battles, and Nero was ready in the field afore the castle Terrible with a great host, and he had 10 battles, with many more people than Arthur had. Then Nero had the vanguard with the most part of his people, and Merlin came to King Lot of the Isle of Orkney, and held him with a tale of prophecy, till Nero and his people were destroyed. And there Sir Kay the seneschal did passingly well, that the days of his life the worship went never from him. And Sir Hervis the rebel did marvellous deeds with King Arthur, and King Arthur slew that day 20 knights and maimed 40. At that time came in the knight with the 2 swords and his brother Balin, but they too did so marvellously that the king and all the knights marvelled of them, and all they that beheld them said they were sent from heaven as angels or devils from hell. And King Arthur said himself they were the best knights that ever he saw, for they gave such strokes that all men had wonder of them. In the meanwhile came one to King Lot, and told him while he tarried that Nero was destroyed and slain with all his people. Alas, said King Lot, I am ashamed, for by my default there is many a worshipful man slain. For when we had been together there had been none host under the heaven that had been able for to have match with us. This fader with his prophecy hath mocked me. All that did Merlin, for he knew well that in King Lot had been with his body there at the first battle. King Arthur had been slain, and all his people destroyed. And well Merlin knew that one of the kings should be dead that day, and loath was Merlin that any of them both should be slain. But of the twain, he had liefer King Lot had been slain than King Arthur. Now what is best to do? Said King Lot of Orkney, whether is me better to treat with King Arthur or to fight, for the greater part of our people are slain and destroyed? Sir, said a knight, set on Arthur, for they are weary and forfoughten, and we be fresh. As for me, said King Lot, I would every knight would do his part as I would do mine. And then they advanced banners and smote together, and all to shivered their spears. And Arthur's knights, with the help of the knight with the 2 swords and his brother Balin, put King Lot and his host to the worse. But always King Lot held him in the foremost front, and did marvellous deeds of arms, for all his host was borne up by his hands, for he abode all nights. Alas, he might not endure, the which was great pity, that so worthy a knight as he was one should be overmatched, that of late time afore had been a knight of King Arthur's, and wedded the sister of King Arthur. And for King Arthur lay by King Lot's wife, the which was Arthur's sister, and get on her Mordred. Therefore King Lot held against Arthur. So there was a knight that was called a knight with a strange beast, and at that time his right name was called Pellinore, the which was a good man of prowess, and he smote a mighty stroke at King Lot as he fought with all his enemies, and he failed his stroke, and smote the horse's neck, that he fell to the ground with King Lot, and therewith anon Pellinore smote him a great stroke through the helm and head unto the brows. And then all the host of Orkney fled for the death of King Lot, and there were slain many mothers' sons. But King Pellinore bare the wide of the death of King Lot. Wherefore Sir Gawain revenged the death of his father the 10th year after he was made knight, and slew King Pellinore with his own hands. Also there were slain at that battle 12 kings on the side of King Lot with Nero, and all were buried in the church of St. Stephen's in Camelot, and the remnant of knights and of others were buried in a great rock. Chapter 11 of the interment of 12 kings, and of the prophecy of Merlin, and how Balin should give a dolorous stroke. So at the interment came King Lot's wife Margaux with her 4 sons, Gawain, Agravain, Gaheris, and Gareth. Also there came to the King Uriens, Sir Ewain's father, and Morgan le Fay his wife, that was King Arthur's sister. All these came to the interment. But of all these 12 kings, King Arthur let make the tomb of King Lot passing richly, and made his tomb by his own. And then Arthur let make 12 images of leaden and copper, and overgild it with gold, in the sign of 12 kings, and each one of them held a taper of wax that burnt day and night. And King Arthur was made in sign of a figure standing above them with a sword drawn in his hand. And all the 12 figures had countenance like unto men that were overcome. All this made Merlin by his subtle craft. And there he told the king, When I am dead, these tapers shall burn no longer, and soon after the adventures of a Sangreal shall come among you and be achieved. Also he told Arthur how Balin the worshipful knight shall give the dolorous stroke, whereof shall fall great vengeance. Oh, where's Balin and Balin and Pellinore? Said King Arthur. As for Pellinore, said Merlin, he will meet with you soon, and as for Balin, he will not be long from you. But the other brother will depart, ye shall see him no more. By my faith, said Arthur, "they are two marvellous knights, and namely Balin passeth the prowess of any knight that ever I found, for much beholden am I unto him. Would God he would abide with me." "Sir," said Merlin, "look ye keep well the scabbard of Excalibur, for ye shall lose no blood while ye have the scabbard upon you, though ye have as many wounds upon you as ye may have." So after, for great trust, Arthur betook the scabbard to Morgan le Fay his sister, and she loved another knight better than her husband, King Uriens or King Arthur, and she would have had Arthur her brother slain, and therefore she let make another scabbard like it by enchantment, and gave the scabbard Excalibur to her love, and the knight's name was called Accolin, that after had near slain King Arthur. After this Merlin told unto King Arthur the prophecy that there should be a great battle beside Salisbury, and Mordred his own son should be against him. Also he told him that Bagdemagus was his cousin, and germain unto King Uriens. Chapter 12. How a sorrowful knight came before Arthur, and how Balin fetched him, and how that knight was slain by a knight invisible. Within a day or two King Arthur was somewhat sick, and he let pitch his pavilion in a meadow, and they laid him down on a pallet to sleep, but he might have no rest. Right so he heard a great noise of an horse, and therewith the king looked out at the porch of the pavilion, and saw a knight coming even by him, making great dole. "Abide, fair sir," said Arthur, "and tell me wherefore thou makest this sorrow." "Ye may little amend me," said the knight, and so passed forth to the castle of Meliad. Anon after there came Balin, and when he saw King Arthur he alighted off his horse, and came to the king on foot, and saluted him. "By my head," said Arthur, "ye be welcome." "Sir, right now came riding this way a knight making great mourn, for what cause I cannot tell. Wherefore I would desire of you of your courtesy and of your gentleness to fetch again that knight either by force or else by his goodwill." "I will do more for your lordship than that," said Balin, and so he rode more than a pace, and found the knight with a damosel in a forest, and said, "Sir knight, ye must come with me unto King Arthur, for to tell him of your sorrow." "That will I not," said the knight, "for it will scathe me greatly, and do you none avail." "Sir," said Balin, "I pray you make you ready, for ye must go with me, or else I must fight with you and bring you by force, and that will me loath to do." "Will ye be my warrant?" said the knight, "and I go with you?" "Yea," said Balin, "or else I will die therefore." And so he made him ready to go with Balin, and left the damosel still. And as they were even afore King Arthur's pavilion, there came one invisible, and smote this knight that went with Balin throughout the body with a spear. "Alas," said the knight, "I am slain under your conduct with a knight called Gawain. Therefore take my horse that is better than yours, and ride to the damosel, and follow the quest that I was in as she will lead you, and revenge my death when ye may." "That shall I do," said Balin, "and that I make vow unto knighthood." And so he departed from this knight with great sorrow. So King Arthur let bury this knight richly, and made a mention on his tomb, how there was slain Herleus le Berbeus, and by whom the treachery was done, the knight Gawain. But ever the damosel bare the truncheon of the spear with that Sir Herleus was slain withal. Chapter 13. How Balin and the damosel met with a knight which was in likewise slain, and how the damosel bled for the custom of a castle. So Balin and the damosel rode into a forest, and they met with a knight that had been hunting, and that knight asked Balin for what cause he made so great sorrow. "Me list not to tell you," said Balin. "Now," said the knight, "an I were armed as ye be, I would fight with you." "That should little need," said Balin. "I am not afeard to tell you," and told him all the cause how it was. "Ah," said the knight, "is this all? Here I ensure you by the faith of my body never to depart from you while my life lasteth." And so they went to the hostelry and armed them, and so rode forth with Balin. And as they came by an hermitage, even by a churchyard, there came the knight Gawain invisible, and smote this knight, Perin de Mount Beliad, through the body with a spear. "Alas," said the knight, "I am slain by this traitor knight that readeth invisible." "Alas," said Balin, "it is not the first despite he hath done me." And there the hermit and Balin buried the knight under a rich stone in a tomb royal. And on the morn they found letters of gold written, how Sir Gawain shall revenge his father's death, King Lot, on the King Pellinot. Anon after this Balin and the damosel rode till they came to a castle, and there Balin alighted. And he and the damosel went to go into the castle. And anon as Balin came within the castle's gate, the portcullis fell down at his back, And there fell many men about the damosel, and would have slain her. When Balin saw that, he was sore aggrieved, for he might not help the damosel. Then he went up into the tower, and leapt over walls into the ditch, and hurt him not. And anon he pulled out his sword, and would have foughten with them. And they all said nay, they would not fight with him, for they did nothing but the old custom of the castle, and told him how their lady was sick, and had lain many years, and she might not be whole but if she had a dish of silver full of blood of a clean maid and a king's daughter. And therefore the custom of this castle is, there shall no damosel pass this way, but she shall bleed of a blood in a silver dish full. Well, said Balin, she shall bleed as much as she may bleed, but I will not lose the life of her whiles my life lasteth. And so Balin made her to bleed by her good will, but her blood helped not the lady. And so he and she rested there all night, and had their right good cheer, and on the morn they passed on their ways. And as it telleth after in the Sangreal, that Sir Percivale's sister helped that lady with the blood, whereof she was dead. Chapter 14. How Balin met with that knight named Gawain at a feast, and there he slew him, to have his blood to heal therewith the son of his host. Then they rode 3 or 4 days, and never met with adventure. And by hap they were lodged with a gentleman that was a rich man and well at ease. And as they sat at their supper, Balin overheard one complain grievously by him in a chair. What is this noise? Said Balin. Forsooth, said his host, I will tell you. I was but late at a jousting, and there I jousted with a knight that is brother unto King Pellam, and twice smote I him down, and then he promised to quit me on my best friend. And so he wounded my son, that cannot behold till I have of that knight's blood, and he readeth alway invisible, but I know not his name. Ah, said Balin, I know that knight. His name is Gawain. He has slain 2 knights of mine in the same manner. Therefore I had liefer meet with that knight than all the gold in this realm, for the despite he hath done me. Well, said his host, I shall tell you. King Pellam of Lyonesse hath made due cry in all this country a great feast that shall be within these 20 days, and no knight may come there but if he bring his wife with him, or his paramour, and that night, your enemy and mine, ye shall see that day. Then I behote you, said Balin, part of his blood to heal your son withal. We will be forward to morn, said his host. So on the morn they rode all 3 toward Pellam, and they had 15 days' journey or they came thither, and that same day began the great feast. And so they alighted and stabled their horses, and went into the castle, but Balin's host might not be let in because he had no lady. Then Balin was well received and brought unto a chamber and unarmed him, and there were brought him robes to his pleasure, and would have had Balin leave his sword behind him. Nay, said Balin, that do I not, for it is the custom of my country a knight always to keep his weapon with him, and that custom will I keep, or else I will depart as I came. Then they gave him leave to wear his sword, and so he went unto the castle, and was set among knights of worship, and his lady afore him. Soon Balin asked a knight, Is there not a knight in this court whose name is Gawain? Yonder he goeth, said a knight, he with a black face. He is a marvellous knight that is now living, for he destroyeth many good knights, for he goeth invisible. Ah well, said Balin, is that he? Then Balin advised him long, If I slay him here I shall not escape, and if I leave him now, peradventure I shall never meet with him again at such a steven, and much harm he will do when he live. Therewith his Gawain espied that this Balin beheld him, and then he came and smote Balin on the face with the back of his hand, and said, Knight, why beholdest me so? For shame therefore, eat thy meat and do that thou came for. Thou sayest sooth, said Balin, this is not the first despite that thou hast done me, and therefore I will do what I came for, and rose up fiercely and clave his head to the shoulders. Give me the truncheon, said Balin to his lady, wherewith he slew your knight. Anon she gave it him, for always she bare the truncheon with her. And therewith Balin smote him through the body, and said openly, With that truncheon thou hast slain a good knight, and now it sticketh in thy body. And then Balin called unto him his host, saying, Now may he fetch blood enough to heal your son withal. Chapter 15. How Balin fought with King Pellam, and how his sword brake, and how he get a spear wherewith he smote the dolorous stroke. Anon all the knights arose from the table for to set on Balin, and King Pellam himself arose up fiercely, and said, Knight, hast thou slain my brother? Thou shalt die therefore thou depart. Well, said Balin, do it yourself. Yes, Said King Pellam, "There shall no man have ado with thee but myself, for the love of my brother." Then King Pellam caught in his hand a grim weapon and smote eagerly at Balin. But Balin put the sword betwixt his head and the stroke, and therewith his sword burst in sunder. And when Balin was weaponless, he ran into a chamber for to seek some weapon, and so from chamber to chamber, and no weapon he could find, and always King Pellam after him. And at the last he entered into a chamber that was marvellously well dyed and richly, and a bed arrayed with cloth of gold, the richest that might be thought, and one lying therein. And thereby stood a table of clean gold with 4 pillars of silver that bare up the table, and upon the table stood a marvellous spear strangely wrought. And when Balin saw that spear, he get it in his hand, and turned him to King Pellam, and smote him passingly sore with that spear, that King Pellam fell down in a swoon. And therewith the castle roof and walls brake and fell to the earth, and Balin fell down so that he might not stir foot nor hand. And so the most part of the castle, that was fallen down through that dolorous stroke, lay upon Pellam and Balin 3 days. Chapter 16. How Balin was delivered by Merlin, and saved a knight that would have slain himself for love. Then Merlin came thither and took up Balin, and get him a good horse, for his was dead, and bade him ride out of that country. "I would have my damosel," said Balin. "Lo," said Merlin, "where she lieth dead." And King Pellam lay so many years so wounded, and might never be whole till Galahad the Haut Prince healed him in the quest of the Sangreal, for in that place was part of the blood of our Lord Jesus Christ, that Joseph of Arimathea brought into this land, and there himself lay in that rich bed. And that was the same spear that Longius smote our Lord to the heart, and King Pellam was nigh of Joseph's kin, and that was the most worshipful man that lived in those days, and great pity it was of his hurt, for through that stroke turned the great dole, tray, and tenor. Then departed Balin from Merlin, and said, "In this world we meet never no more." So he rode forth through the fair countries and cities, and found a people dead, slain on every side. And all that were alive cried, "O Balin, thou hast caused great damage in these countries. For the dolorous stroke thou gavest unto King Pellam 3 countries are destroyed, and doubt not but the vengeance will fall on thee at the last." When Balin was past those countries he was passing fain. So he rode 8 days, or he met with adventure. And at the last he came into a fair forest in a valley, and was ware of a tower, and there beside he saw a great horse of war tied to a tree, and there beside sat a fair knight on the ground and made great mourning, and he was a likely man, and a well-made. Balin said, "God save you, why be ye so heavy? Tell me, and I will amend it, and I may to my power." "Sir Knight," said he again, "thou dost me great grief, for I was in merry thoughts, and now thou puttest me to more pain." Balin went a little from him, and looked on his horse. Then heard Balin him say thus, "Ah, fair lady, why have ye broken my promise? For thou promisest me to meet me here by noon, and I may curse thee that ever ye gave me this sword, for with this sword I slay myself, and pulled it out." And therewith Balin stirred unto him, and took him by the hand. "Let go my hand," said the knight, "or else I shall slay thee." "That shall not need," said Balin, "for I shall promise you my help to get you your lady, and ye will tell me where she is." "What is your name?" said the knight. "My name is Balin Lo Savage." "Aye, so I know you well enough. Ye are the knight with the 2 swords, and the man of most prowess of your hands living." "What is your name?" said Balin. "My name is Garnish of the Mount, a poor man's son, but by my prowess and hardiness a duke hath made me knight, and gave me lands. His name is Ducamel, and his daughter is she that I love, and she me as I deemed." "How far is she hence?" said Balin. "But 6 mile," said the knight. "Now ride we hence," said these 2 knights. So they rode more than a pace, till that they came to a fair castle well walled and ditched. "I will into the castle," said Balin, "and look if she be there." So he went in and searched from chamber to chamber, and found a bed, but she was not there. Then Balin looked into a fair little garden, and under a laurel tree he saw her lie upon a quilt of green samite, and a knight in her arms, fast housing either other, and under their heads grass and herbs. When Balin saw her lie so with the foulest knight that ever he saw, and she a fair lady, then Balin went through all the chambers again, and told the knight how he found her as she had slept fast, and so brought him in the place there she lay fast sleeping. Chapter 17. how that knight slew his love and a knight lying by her, and after, how he slew himself with his own sword, and how Balin rode toward a castle where he lost his life. And when Garnish beheld her so lying, for pure sorrow his mouth and nose burst out a-bleeding, and with his sword he smote off both their heads. And then he made sorrow out of measure, and said, O Balin, much sorrow hast thou brought unto me, for hadst thou not showed me that sight I should have passed my sorrow. Forsooth, said Balin, I did it to this intent that it should better thy courage, and that ye might see and know her falsehood, and to cause you to leave love of such a lady. God knoweth I did none other but as I would ye did to me. Alas, said Garnish, now is my sorrow double that I may not endure. Now have I slain that I most loved in all my life. And therewith suddenly he rove himself on his own sword unto the hilts. When Balin saw that, he dressed him thenceward, lest folk would say he had slain them. And so he rode forth, and within 3 days he came by a cross, and thereon were letters of gold written, that said, It is not for no knight alone to ride toward this castle. Then saw he an old or gentleman coming toward him, that said, Balin le Savage, thou passest thy bound to come this way. Therefore turn again, and it will avail thee. And he vanished away anon, and so he heard an horn blow as it had been the death of a beast. That blast, said Balin, is blown for me, for I am the prize, and yet am I not dead. Anon withal he saw 100 ladies and many knights, that welcomed him with fair semblant, and made him passing good cheer unto his sight, and led him into the castle. And there was dancing and minstrelsy and all manner of joy. Then the chief lady of the castle said, Knight with the 2 swords, ye must have ado and joust with a knight hereby that keepeth an island, for there may no man pass this way but he must joust or he pass. That is an unhappy custom, said Balin, that a knight may not pass this way but if he joust. Ye shall not have ado but with one knight, said the lady. Well, said Balin, since I shall the 2 I am ready. But travelling men are oft weary, and their horses too. But though my horse be weary, my heart is not weary. I would be fain there my death should be. Sir, said a knight to Balin, methinketh your shield is not good. I will lend you a bigger. Thereof I pray you. And so he took a shield that was unknown and left his own, and so rode unto the island, and put him and his horse in a great boat. And when he came on the other side, he met with a damosel, and she said, O knight Balin, why have ye left your own shield? Alas, ye have put yourself in great danger, for by your shield ye should have been known. It is great pity of you as ever was of knight, for thy prowess and hardiness thou hast no fellow living. Me repenteth, said Balin, that ever I came within this country, but I may not turn now again for shame, and what adventure shall fall to me, be it life or death, I will take the adventure that shall come to me. And then he looked on his armour, and understood he was well armed, and therewith blessed him and mounted upon his horse. Chapter 18. How Balin met with his brother Balin, and how each of them slew other unknown, till they were wounded to death. Then afore him he saw come riding out of a castle a knight, and his horse trapped all red, and himself in the same colour. When this knight in the red beheld Balin, him thought it should be his brother Balin by cause of his 2 swords, but by cause he knew not his shield he deemed it was not he. And so they aventred their spears and came marvellously fast together, and they smote each other in the shields, but their spears and their course were so big that it bare down horse and man, that they lay both in a swoon. But Balin was bruised sore with the fall of his horse, for he was weary of travel. And Balin was the first that rose on foot and drew his sword, and went toward Balin. And he arose and went against him, but Balin smote Balin first, and he put up his shield and smote him through the shield and tamed his helm. Then Balin smote him again with that unhappy sword, and well nigh had felled his brother Balin. And so they fought there together till their breaths failed. Then Balin looked up to the castle, and saw the tower stand full of ladies. So they went unto battle again, and wounded ever each other dolefully. And then they breathed oft times, and so went unto battle that all the place there as they fought was blood red. And at that time there was none of them both, but they had either smitten other 7 great wounds, so that the least of them might have been the death of the mightiest giant in this world. Then they went to battle again so marvellously that doubt it was to hear that battle for the great bloodshedding, and their hauberks unnailed that naked they were on every side. At last Balin, the younger brother, withdrew him a little, and laid him down. Then said Balin le Savage, What knight art thou? For now I found never no knight that matched me. My name is, said he, Balin, brother unto the good knight, Balin. Alas, said Balin, that ever I should see this day. And therewith he fell backward in a swoon. Then Balin yet on all 4 feet and hands, and put off the helm of his brother, and might not know him by the visage, it was so full hewn and bled. But when he awoke, he said, O Balin, my brother, thou hast slain me and I thee, wherefore all the wide world shall speak of us both. Alas, said Balin, that ever I saw this day, that through mishap I might not know you, for I espied well your 2 swords, but by cause he had another shield I deemed he had been another knight. Alas, said Balin, all that made an unhappy knight in the castle, for he caused me to leave my own shield to our both's destruction, and if I might live I would destroy that castle for ill customs. That were well done, said Balin, for I had never grace to depart from him since that I came hither, for here it happed me to slay a knight that kept this island, and since might I never depart, and no more should ye, brother, and ye might have slain me as ye have, and escape yourself with the life. Right so came the lady of the tower with 4 knights and 6 ladies and 6 yeomen unto them, and there she heard how they made their moan either to other, and said, We came both out of one tomb, that is to say one mother's belly, and so shall we lie both in one pit. So Balin prayed the lady of her gentleness, for his true service, that she would bury them both in that same place that the battle was done. And she granted them, with weeping, it should be done richly in the best manner. Now, will ye send for a priest, that we may receive our sacrament, and receive the blessed body of our Lord Jesus Christ? Yea, said the lady, it shall be done. And so she sent for a priest and gave them their rites. Now, said Balin, when we are buried in one tomb, and the mention made over us how 2 brethren slew each other, there will never good knight, nor good man, see our tomb, but they will pray for our souls. And so all the ladies and gentlewomen wept for pity. Then anon Balin died, but Balin died not till the midnight after, and so they buried both. And the lady let make a mention of Balin how he was there slain by his brother's hands, but she knew not Balin's name. Chapter 19. How Merlin buried them both in one tomb, and of Balin's sword. In the morn came Merlin, and let write Balin's name on the tomb with letters of gold, that here lieth Balin le Savage, that was a knight with the 2 swords, and he that smote the dolorous stroke. Also Merlin let make their bed, that there should never man lie therein, but he went out of his wit. Yet Lancelot de Lake fordid that bed through his noblesse. And anon after Balin was dead, Merlin took his sword, and took off the pommel, and set on another pommel. So Merlin bade a knight that stood afore him handle that sword, and he essayed, and he might not handle it. Then Merlin laughed. Why laugh ye? Said the knight. This is the cause, said Merlin. There shall never man handle this sword but the best knight of the world, and that shall be Sir Lancelot, or else Galahad his son. And Lancelot with this sword shall slay the man that in the world he loved best, that shall be Sir Gawain. All this he let write in the pommel of the sword. Then Merlin let make a bridge of iron and of steel into that island, and it was but 1/2 foot broad, and there shall never man pass that bridge, nor have hardiness to go over, but if he were a passing good man, and a good knight without treachery or villainy. Also the scabbard of Balin's sword Merlin left it on this side the island, that Galahad should find it. Also Merlin let make by his subtlety that Balin's sword was put in a marble stone standing upright as great as a millstone, and the stone hoved always above the water and did many years. And so by adventure it swam down the stream to the city of Camelot, that is in English Winchester. And that same day Galahad the haut prince came with King Arthur, and so Galahad brought with him the scabbard, and achieved the sword that was there in the marble stone hoving upon the water. And on Whitsunday he achieved the sword as it is rehearsed in the book of Sangreal. Soon after this was done, Merlin came to King Arthur, and told him of the dolorous stroke that Balin gave to King Pellam, and how Balin and Balin fought together the marvellous battle that ever was heard of, and how they were buried both in one tomb. Alas, said King Arthur, this is the greatest pity that ever I heard tell of 2 knights, for in the world I know not such 2 knights. Thus endeth the tale of Balin and of Balin, 2 brethren born in Northumberland, good knights.